So, is that it with the workshop?
No. One more thing to go over.
Oh.
Actually, probably two more things. The second thing will be a sort of overall thing, Jake. Game mechanics!
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Heck yes.
They are somewhat harder to make than you might think. So, what you Clark, okay. The thing you want with game mechanics is for them to be intuitives. People need to be able to remember how they work, and if they somehow missed how they work because they showed up like 5 minutes before game, and or like slept through world background or whatever, or through game conventions. You need to make sure it's good if your game conventions are apparent even when they're being used on you, or when they're happening, even if you haven't had preparation. Which is why general stuff like improv of magic is good.
The fire-breathing sparrows worked really well.
Yeah, so I heard.
Sure, Doc!
Other thing about game conventions is make sure the possibilities are well defined, and make sure that what can be done with them is balanced. Which is why death spells are a terrible idea. Don't do them. Furthermore, if you're going to have someone who can create an effect that's really bad if you don't fix it, make sure there's a way to get out of that effect. Like someone who can fix it, or just it wears off after a while. Yeah. Game conventions. Oh! Let's talk about, Brian, your game convention that went awry and caused much dismay and violence to not happen in this action high fantasy game.
Yeah, that was awkward. Should you or should I?
You.
Okay.
I
So.
wasn't bearable.
Here.
So, hi. Several years ago, I wrote a game called Black Honor, as was said. Supposed to be very much, essentially, there's this one side of power. Several people want to try to use it, so they come in, they try to kill people. But this world was very much about keeping order. So I had even this one mechanic, sort of like the Words of Peace. I'm not exactly remembering.
It was the Accords of Peace.
The Accords of
That's what it was
Peace.
called.
And so, the general effect was when, unless certain prerequisites came about, or things like that, you couldn't really fight. So, while it would make a lot of sense in a world to make sure that, say, peasants don't die, or that noble lineages actually survive getting wiped out, it kind of prevented people, especially since a part of it wasn't as well defined, therefore they didn't know exactly how to get out of it. So thus, it essentially hurt people's chances of actually hurting other people. In a high fantasy adventure, you want to be able to go and actually make noble conquest, or unholy conquest, as the case was. But since people were kind of prevented from doing so, they were trying to figure out exactly what to do instead, which there isn't a lot of options given in the very directed goal of you want to overpower these people and use this site for something.
imagine dichotomy if you never got to fight your nemesis.
Yeah.
Or Stefan, in your case.
I never got to fight the
Imagine half the characters you have ever played, except they never got to fight their nemesis.
That is funny.
Yeah, so...
Imagine Justice not being able to do anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely...
Well, yes.
I didn't even have a nemesis.
That guy killed
So, underlying the tenet of that, you don't want, especially over everything, to have some sort of damper. Like, certainly it's cool when there are specific people that can put a damper, or there's a very specific set of circumstances that can put a damper on anything, especially if that's like on the big bad. But you don't want just you want ways of, and the ways to be easy, to go out and start killing people, or to go out and conquest, or whatever you're supposed to do for the feel of the game.
Stab.
Yeah, stab. Precisely. You want to be able to do that.
Oh! Stab. 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 Stab.
Thank you.
Yes, exactly.
The people in the video can't see you stabbing him.
So,
Well, there's this. Yeah.
Well, those you see. Wait.
They're missing out on the stabbing and the
I believe that that was the major mechanic problem with the game, and so thus, as I believe that would be done as far as game mechanics.
One other note on game mechanics. So, as many of you know, and as many of you were there, this last game, Dichotomy, had people with elemental powers, and it was awesome, and they also had nemeses. However, there are also people without nemeses or elemental powers. For the most part, we did give them cool weapons and things to do stuff with. However, we did miss a few. Deborah, why don't you explain how much it sucks?
Okay, so I was one of the 4 or 5 null in the game. They were the ones who didn't have powers and nemesi. And essentially what we could do was stand there and shout encouragement. Because the people with elemental powers could heal you, but they didn't like you very much. So if you went into battle, you were weaker, and if you were lucky, had a weapon, and you were mostly going to get killed. And when it came to fighting the really scary chaos monsters, you couldn't do anything. And yeah, it was a lot of washing.
Yeah, essentially, I do think it's good in games with magic to have the not be magical option, but it's very difficult to balance. It works best with often giving them pseudo-magical powers. More experimentation on this will follow.
I think if you do have people with magic in game, it shouldn't be a majority of people with magic, and if it is, those without magic should play a key or crucial role, or have a very specific purpose, so they can do something.
Right, yes. That's a good way to make people important. You can make people important without making them powerful. That is the thing.
Mm-hmm. Having a lot of unimportant, not powerful people in your game, though, is not necessarily that fun. A lot of people do it, and I've done a lot of that role, and it gets really boring.
That's why if you make everyone crazy, they'll never be unimportant.
Okay, so I think that's good for game conventions. So,
Final
just...
word.
Huh?
Final word?
Final
word?
Yes. So, just cycling back to what I was saying before, remember what you're trying to do. You're trying to create a experience that's enjoyable for all involved and brings them closer together as a community. Now then, why don't you all, popcorn style, think of how the things that we went over contribute to this overall philosophy?
Not quite sure what you're getting at.
I mean,
I have an idea.
yeah.
If you have several possible routes of the flow, and people have choice, you can plan for the ways that people will naturally choose, that they will feel that they will get the best experience. It's what you interpret as the most optimum experience may not be what they interpret, but if you have the idea of flow, then you'll be able to accommodate for that.
Like what he said.
Give characters personal motivations so that even if their party dies out or they don't have anything to do with the story, they can actually achieve something within game.
If you have game conventions that make sense, even if somebody gets confused halfway through game, they can still experience and participate with other people.
Also, if anybody has any questions.
Oh, right. Now is the time for more individual discussing time things. So, alright, thank you all for
Well, I'd
listening.
like to know if there are any questions that they think could apply to the group,
Oh,
or
yes,
the people
yes.
who aren't here. So, and then after that we can do one-on-one.
Alright, questions that could apply to the group. Anybody's? I guess not, given that I've allowed questions during the workshop.
He actually is like.
Okay.
He's not responding to anything, so.
So after this, we can do a break and one-on-one if people have questions pertaining to their games.
What time?
Yes.
It's about
Yeah.
3 o'clock.
And also, at some point, if people want, I can always read the story about Gloria
Yeah.
as an example, because it will probably also be used as a character sheet. But
I
yeah,
was
like I
thinking
said,
of
break
put
first.
forward a motion for
We can just hear some of the
Pizza,
others.
yeah.
Ooh,
Definitely.
pizza. I
We can
like
all
this
chip in
idea.
something.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a
by
great
the way,
idea. Just chip in.
Let's view the window.
okay,
Looking
so,
out the window. Excellent.
alright, thank you all for listening to me grumble about games for an hour or two. We're going to disperse into, break /
Efforts to find food.
One-on-one.
although,
Story time.
I think I need a bread.
Running around in circles.
FYI.
FYI! FYI, you probably don't really need to film this still. It's not relevant to...
You haven't said we're done yet. You haven't said we're done yet.
We're done yet.